My name is Toure Muhammad, and I was born and raised in Chicago, born in 1970, and my people come from really all across the South and a little bit west as well. On my mother's side, we came from Oklahoma, Texas, and a little bit even further out west, we have a lot of people that are in California right now. But I think the core really came from the Oklahoma, El Reno area. And they came here, my grandmother came here, I believe in like the 1930s, maybe late 30s. She moved here looking for a better way of life, of course. And she really enjoyed Chicago and ended up in, I guess, in that Hyde Park / Inglewood area. Around 61st and Langley. And she actually really stayed there pretty much all her life. She was on 61st and Evans. She decided to move to 61st and Langley. And the second time she moved from one end of 61st and Langley to the other end of 61st and Langley. And then when she was ready to go into like an assisted living place, she moved all the way on 61st and Cottage Grove. So she loved the community and raised my mother and my uncle in that area. And she remained in that area until she passed earlier this year. On my father's side, we came from Tennessee area. Denmark, Tennessee, I think was the biggest town close to where they were. And even Denmark was a very small place. And they came up, I think they just pretty much just almost hopped on 24 and 57 and came up towards Chicago. They stayed first in Gary. My grandfather got a job there in the steel mill area, where, of course, when it was vibrant and there was a lot of work to be found there. So he worked there for a little while, and they finally came up and settled in Chicago, I believe in the 40s as well. And they began to start a life here as well. Raised two children, my father and my auntie. And they were on the west side for a little while, for a brief moment. And then it's almost as long as I can remember, they were on 97th and Wallace. So I'm not sure exactly what time they left the west side and moved in that area. But they were, kind of like one of those first black folks in that area at that time. And so now they moved out there and are currently still living out in South Holland. So that's kind of, where my people come from. Definitely, I've learned a lot about hard work from both sides and about being thrifty and saving for a rainy day and appreciating what you have.
Have you heard any stories from your family about life for African Americans when they first got to Chicago? Anything about Jim Crow or segregation or anything?
Well, on both sides, they didn't really talk a lot about specific stories when they got here. I know my grandmother, and she had 6, 7 sisters and a brother. And my grandfather had several brothers as well. So I've heard more about some of the reasons that moved them up to Chicago. I have one auntie, even right now, she, is quick to tell it like it is, doesn't mince words. And she's really very kind-hearted and giving, but she has a tough edge. And she had that all her life. And so I do remember hearing a story of when she was maybe 9 or 10 years old. She was in front of the courthouse in the Denmark, Tennessee area, beating up a little white boy because he had called her a foul name. And everyone was terrified for her safety because she had the audacity to whoop him in front of the downtown courthouse. So they all kind of were ready, to, I hear my grandmother would talk about, she was so glad when she got out of the cotton fields. I never heard them use the term sharecropper, but, they did pick a lot of cotton. And she remembers that, and she couldn't wait to get out them cotton fields. And so And this is on my father's side. They actually, my grandfather and my grandmother, both went to college and have college degrees. They went to Lane College, and actually still active alumni of the institution. So they were real adamant about getting their education, getting out them cotton fields, and getting up north where they could find a job. And my grandmother on my mother's side was the same way. She finished school and she was immediately looking to head towards the city where there were a lot more opportunities. So.
Cool. You got anything else you want to say?
I think that's it. I am, I'm really mesmerized and enthused. I'm a history major by profession, I guess. I majored in history in college, and to see what is happening here is very wonderful. That people, my son is here so he can get some of this history. I was laughing with him the other day because I actually mentioned the term beeper. And he didn't even know what a beeper was, let alone some of this rich history from 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I'm glad that it's here, and I think that we have to seize the opportunity to see the value of where we came from, not look back with shame, but really look at some of the technology and how it's grown and how we've grown as a people, and be real focused on knowing that we got to continue going forward and not go backward.
Thank you.
Thank you.